A man woke up one morning and decided not to go to work. He didn't know why. He wasn't sick. He had no reason. He just didn't go. That morning, the building where he worked collapsed. Everyone inside died. He spent the rest of his life believing God had sent him a sign, that something beyond himself had reached into his ordinary Tuesday morning and pulled him away from the edge of his own death. Was he right? That question, simple on the surface, turns out to be one of the most complicated things a human being can ask, because the answer you give doesn't just say something about God, it says something about you. Psychologists have a name for what happened to him: apophenia, seeing patterns that aren't really there. For hundreds of thousands of years, the brains that survived were the ones that connected dots the fastest. Rustling in the grass, predator, dark clouds, storm, a certain smell, danger. The minds that hesitated didn't get a second chance, so we inherited brains that see patterns everywhere, even when the patterns aren't there. But here is what the scientists don't always say out loud. Just because a brain is wired to find patterns doesn't mean every pattern it finds is wrong. April 13th, 1970. Apollo 13 is 200,000 miles from Earth when an oxygen tank explodes. The mission is over. 3 astronauts are stranded in space with no heat, almost no water, and a carbon dioxide level that will kill them in hours. What happened next has been called one of the greatest survival stories in human history. Engineers on the ground, working with nothing but duct tape and plastic bags, improvised a solution that had never been tested. The astronauts made it home. Astronaut Jim Lovell was asked later whether he believed in God before the mission. He said yes. He was asked whether he believed in God after. He said more. He couldn't explain what changed exactly. He just knew that in the silence of space, 200,000 miles from everything, something had been present. He never found a better word for it than that. Present. Every major religious tradition has said in its own language the same thing. The world speaks. Most people aren't listening. In Islam, the Arabic word is ayat. It means both verse of the Quran and sign. The same word, deliberately. The Quran uses it hundreds of times, pointing to the movement of stars, the alternation of night and day, the growth of plants from dead earth. All of it, ayat, signs, not miracles on demand, not lightning on command, something quieter. We will show them our signs in the horizons, the Quran says, and within themselves, until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. Within themselves, not only in the sky, not only in history, inside. The man's son grew up hearing that story every year. He was an engineer. He believed in cause and effect, in data, in things that could be measured. He loved his father, but he couldn't share his certainty. He told me he had spent years trying to find the version of that story that felt honest, not the religious version. God intervened, and not the scientific version. Pure coincidence. Because both, he said, felt like they were leaving something out. He didn't know what. January 15th, 2009. U.S. Airways, Flight 1549 takes off from LaGuardia Airport in New York. 90 seconds into the flight, both engines are destroyed by a flock of geese. The plane is at 2,800 feet with no power over one of the most densely populated cities on Earth. Captain Chesley Sullenberger had 35 seconds to make a decision. He landed the plane on the Hudson River. All 155 people on board survived. Passengers who were interviewed afterward described the moments before impact in remarkably similar terms. Not panic, not chaos, a strange, unexpected calm. Several of them, people who had not prayed in years, people who described themselves as non-religious, said the same thing. They said goodbye to someone, not out loud, not consciously, but in those final seconds, something in them turned towards something else, something they didn't have a name for. In the Christian tradition, the question of signs has been causing arguments for 2,000 years. The disciples asked for signs. Jesus gave them signs, and then, in one of the most striking moments in the Gospels, he refused. A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign, but none will be given. The answer most theologians land on A sign that can be demanded and delivered on schedule is not a sign, it is a transaction, and faith built on transactions is not really faith. C.S. Lewis described his own conversion not as a vision or a voice from heaven, but as a slow, reluctant recognition. Like a man who has been avoiding a conversation for years and finally realizes the other person has been waiting patiently the whole time. Not a lightning bolt, a patience. Now, here is something that doesn't fit neatly into either framework. A study conducted across hospitals in the United States asked terminally ill patients about experiences of meaningful coincidence in the weeks before their death. Unexplained encounters, dreams that seemed to answer questions, a sense of presence in the room. Over 60% reported at least one. They weren't all religious. Many described themselves as atheist or agnostic, but something was happening. Something the patients themselves, regardless of prior beliefs, described in almost identical terms. A feeling of being held, of not being alone, of something paying attention. The researchers made no claims about what was causing it, but they noted one thing that stayed with me. The patients who reported these experiences did not die more afraid. The Jewish tradition's honesty about this question is remarkable. In the Hebrew Bible, signs are dramatic. The burning bush, the parting of the sea, the pillar of fire. God speaks loudly, visibly, unmistakably, and still, the people who witnessed it firsthand doubted, complained, turned away. Which raises the question the rabbis have been sitting with for 3,000 years. If signs that dramatic didn't produce lasting faith, what exactly is a sign supposed to do? Their answer, signs are not proof. Signs are invitations. They open a door. What happens next depends entirely on the person standing in front of it. There is a concept in Jewish mysticism, Hester Panim, the hiding of the face. The idea that God sometimes withdraws from visibility not as punishment, but as a kind of gift. That faith, which can only exist when God is obvious, is not really faith. The absence of signs, in other words, might be its own kind of sign. The engineer, the man's son, told me something that surprised me. The closest he ever came to understanding his father was not in any religious place. It was in a hospital corridor. 3 a.m, the night his first child was born. He walked out of the delivery room into a completely empty hallway, and something happened that he still cannot explain. Not a vision, not a voice, just a sudden, overwhelming sense that the universe was not empty, that what had just happened, this child arriving in this world, was not random noise. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. He went back inside. He never told his father. He said he didn't have the words. Eastern traditions, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, are skeptical of signs as external interventions, not because the universe is empty, but because the universe is so full that the concept of a separate sign sent from outside misunderstands everything. Carl Jung gave this a name, synchronicity, meaningful coincidence, events with no causal connection that feel, to the person experiencing them, like they belong together, like two instruments in different rooms playing the same note. Jung was careful not to call this supernatural. He was also careful not to dismiss it. He said, "The most important question is not whether synchronicity is real. It's what it does to the person who experiences it." Which brings us back to the man. He lived another 40 years after that morning. He prayed 5 times a day. He raised 3 children. He buried his wife. He got old. He never received another sign as clear as that first one. He looked for them. They didn't come on demand. What came instead was something more ordinary and more sustaining. A sense that the first sign had been enough, that he had been shown once, that the universe was not indifferent to him. His son asked him once, near the end of his life, whether he was sure, whether he really believed the building falling that day was not coincidence. The old man thought about it for a long time. "I don't know if it was God. I know it changed me. And I don't know how to separate those two things. Why do some people see signs and others don't? It has almost nothing to do with intelligence. Highly rational, scientifically trained people report experiences of presence and meaning, and usually stay quiet because they expect not to be believed. The engineer in the hospital corridor is not unusual. He is typical. Jim Lovell, 200,000 miles from Earth, is not unusual. He is typical. It has something to do with attention. People who practice contemplative discipline, prayer, meditation, silence, report these experiences at significantly higher rates, not because they are more credulous, because they have slowed down enough to notice what is already there. It has something to do with crisis. The moments most described as sign-bearing are moments of extremity, grief, danger, loss, as if the ordinary noise of life has to be stripped away before something quieter can be heard. And it has something to do with what you are willing to consider possible. The man died in 2014. His son told me that at the funeral, standing over his father's grave, he felt it again. That same thing from the hospital corridor, that 30-second sense of something present, something attending, something that knew his name. He still doesn't have a word for it. He said, "My father spent his whole life certain that God had saved him. I spent my whole life certain it was coincidence. And then I stood at his grave, and I thought, what if we were both right? What if the coincidence was the sign?" I think about the passengers on Flight 1549 sometimes, 90 seconds of silence before impact, turning towards something they had no name for. I think about Jim Lovell, 200,000 miles from Earth, feeling a presence he could only call present. I think about a man who didn't go to work one morning, and I think about all the signs we didn't notice, all the mornings we went in anyway, all the things waiting quietly, in the horizons and within ourselves, that we never slowed down enough to see. Maybe God never speaks louder than coincidence, because if he did, faith wouldn't exist, only certainty. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the miracle isn't that God gives signs. Maybe the miracle is that some people still notice them.